As the crew of the mining ship the SS Pleiades settled into their routine, scooping up precious ore from the endless parade of asteroids drifting through the Kuiper Belt, they never could have imagined the strange and wondrous discovery that lay just ahead. The day began much like any other. The maintenance bot whirred to life, the air recyclers hummed their familiar tune, and the captain, Hector Hawk Hawthorne, gave the order to set course for the next promising target. But on this particular day, as the ship's sensors swept across the asteroid's surface, they picked up an anomaly. A faint glimmer of light, unlike anything they'd seen before. Intrigued, Hawk ordered a closer look. As the ship drew near, the glowing orb became clearer. It pulsed with an otherworldly energy, bathing the asteroid in a soft, ethereal light. The crew exchanged puzzled glances. "What is that thing?" muttered one of the engineers, her brow furrowed. "Should we try to bring it aboard?" asked another, fingering the controls of the ship's tractor beam. Hawk hesitated, weighing the potential risks against the promise of scientific discovery. Finally, he made his decision. "Bring it in, boys. We'll figure out what it is once we've got it on board." With a groan, the asteroid split open, revealing the glowing orb nestled within a network of strange, spiraling runes etched into the rock. The crew carefully secured the artifact and brought it aboard the ship. As they did so, however, the ship began to shudder violently, and the air grew thick with the smell of ozone. The lights flickered, and the crew found themselves suddenly thrown across the room, their bodies weightless and disoriented. "What the hell was that?" shouted Hawk, struggling to regain his footing. As the ship stabilized, the crew began to piece together the events that had just unfolded. It seemed that their discovery had set off a chain reaction, unleashing some kind of ancient power that they knew nothing about. And as they pondered this revelation, the ship was rocked by another jolt, even stronger than the first. "We've got to find a way to control whatever's going on," said the chief scientist, her voice trembling, "before it tears us apart." The crew exchanged worried glances, realizing that they had stumbled upon something much bigger than they ever could have imagined. The ship's systems began to malfunction one by one, and the crew was forced to abandon their stations as they struggled to keep the vessel from spiraling out of control. Time seemed to warp and twist around them, as they found themselves reliving the same moments over and over again, each time with some new, horrifying variation. "It's as if we're caught in some kind of loop," muttered one of the engineers as they stumbled through the corridors. "Like we're trapped in a nightmare." Their only hope seemed to lie with the glowing orb they had brought aboard. It was clearly the key to the strange phenomena they were experiencing, but using it was a gamble. They could harness its power and unlock the gates to a new era of discovery, or they could risk unleashing something far more terrifying than anything they had ever imagined. The decision was not an easy one, but time was running out. They knew they had to make it soon. As they cautiously approached the containment chamber where the orb was being held, they could feel the air thicken with anticipation and fear. Each step they took seemed to bring them closer to a crossroads, where the fate of not only their ship, but perhaps their entire species would be decided. The chamber doors slid open with a hiss, revealing the orb, still pulsing with energy, its light casting eerie shadows across the room. The crew exchanged nervous glances before Hawk stepped forward, his voice steady despite the quaver in his throat. "All right, team," he said. "Here's what we're going to do. We're going to try and harness this thing's power. But we've got to do it carefully, and we've got to be prepared for anything. Is everyone on board with that?" Silence hung heavy in the air for a moment before the crew nodded in unison. It was a gamble, but it was their only chance. Hawk motioned to one of the engineers, who began to input the necessary commands into the ship's computer. As they did so, the orb's energy flared, bathing the room in a blinding light. The air grew thick with the smell of ozone, and the ship's systems groaned under the strain. But slowly, steadily, the crew began to regain control. The light faded, and the ship steadied. It was a delicate balancing act, but it seemed to be working. For now, at least, the crew knew that they were not out of danger yet. The orb's power was still unpredictable, and they had no idea what might happen if they pushed it too far. But they had bought themselves some time, and for now that was enough. As they stood watch over the orb, their hearts racing and their minds racing even faster, they could only hope that they had made the right choice. Hours passed, and the ship continued to stabilize. The crew worked together, their exhaustion and fear tempered by the knowledge that they were on the cusp of something truly incredible. They began to explore the ship once more, venturing into areas they had not dared to before, marveling at the strange new devices and technologies that seemed to be woven into the very fabric of the vessel. It was clear that this was no ordinary ship, and that the orb they had found was at the heart of it all. As they continued to study the orb, they began to uncover its secrets. They discovered that it was not just a source of power, but also a gateway to other worlds, dimensions, and realities. They could feel the weight of this knowledge pressing down on them, and they knew that the decisions they made from here on out would shape not only their own fate, but the fate of all life in the universe. Their journey had only just begun, and already they had stumbled upon something that would change everything. They knew that they could not keep what they had found to themselves, and so they began to prepare a message, a warning to the rest of humanity, and an invitation to join them on this incredible adventure. The future was uncertain, but for the first time in their lives, they felt as if they were truly alive, truly free, and truly part of something greater than themselves. As they worked, they could not help but wonder what other secrets the ship held, what other worlds lay waiting for them beyond the portal, and what role they would play in shaping the course of history. The orb seemed to pulse with energy, as if it were alive, and they could feel its power coursing through their veins, driving them forward, compelling them to explore, to discover, and to unlock the mysteries that lay before them. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months, as they explored the ship, learning its secrets, and pushing the boundaries of what they thought was possible. They established a routine, taking turns manning the orb, exploring the ship and resting, but even in their downtime, they could not help but feel the weight of their discovery, the responsibility they now bore, and the incredible potential that lay before them. They began to venture beyond the ship, using its technology to travel to other worlds, other dimensions, and other realities. Each new discovery brought with it a sense of awe and wonder, but also a sense of dread. They knew that with great power came great responsibility, and that the decisions they made would have consequences that would echo through the universe for eternity. They were no longer just a crew of explorers. They were the guardians of a secret that could shape the fate of everything. Their voyages took them to worlds beyond imagination. Planets covered in living crystal, cities floating in the clouds of gas giant plains, civilizations where beings of pure energy coexisted in perfect harmony. They met aliens of all shapes and sizes, each with their own unique culture, language, and history. Some were friendly, eager to trade knowledge and technology with the humans, while others were hostile, seeing them as a threat to their way of life. The crew's sense of responsibility only grew stronger as they continued their journey. They knew that they could not simply explore these worlds and civilizations without considering the consequences of their actions. They began to establish a code of conduct, a set of rules to guide them as they ventured further and further into the unknown. They became more than just explorers. They became diplomats, ambassadors, and protectors of the galaxy. Time passed, and the ship began to show signs of wear and tear. Its systems were strained to their limits, and the crew knew that they could not continue at this pace forever. They began to consider building a new ship, one designed specifically to handle the power and technology they had at their disposal. The prospect both terrified and excited them. They knew that they could not go back to being ordinary humans, not after what they had seen and experienced. As they continued their journey, they were haunted by the knowledge that there were others out there who sought the orb's power for their own selfish ends. They knew that they could not let it fall into the wrong hands, and so they became even more vigilant, always on the lookout for threats, always ready to defend the secret they had been entrusted with. Despite the challenges they faced, the crew remained united, bound together by their shared experiences and their determination to use the orb's power for good. They knew that their journey was far from over, but they also knew that they were prepared for whatever lay ahead. The universe was a vast and mysterious place, full of wonders and dangers, and they were determined to explore it all, to learn its secrets, and to leave their mark upon the cosmos. civilizations that had been affected by the orb's power, either for better or worse. They met with leaders and scholars, sharing their knowledge and experiences, hoping to help others understand the responsibility that came with such great power. They formed alliances and friendships, but they also made enemies, those who resented their authority and sought to challenge their rule. The crew understood that their actions had consequences, and they did not take their role as protectors and guardians lightly. They continued to refine their code of conduct, adapting it to the ever-changing landscape of the universe. They learned from their mistakes and grew stronger together, becoming more than just a group of explorers. They became a force for good, a beacon of hope in a sea of uncertainty. Days turned into years, and years into decades, as the crew of the ship continued their journey, guided by the orb's mysterious energy and their unwavering dedication to the cause. The universe was a living, breathing entity, and they were but a small part of it, but they believed that their actions could shape its future for the better. They knew that there would always be those who sought to exploit the orb's power for their own gain, but they also knew that they would never back down, never give up the fight to protect what they had come to see as their home, and the home of countless other beings across the stars. Eventually, as the universe itself aged and began to change, the crew found themselves facing a new challenge, the prospect of their own mortality. They knew that one day, they would have to pass on the torch, to find someone or something worthy to take their place as the guardians of the orb. It was a daunting thought, but they took comfort in the knowledge that they had done everything in their power to leave the universe a better place than they had found it. As the end drew near, they clung to the hope that their legacy would live on, that the lessons they had learned and the choices they had made would not be forgotten, and that the light they had brought into the darkness would continue to guide others long after they were gone. In the end, the crew did not die of old age or battle wounds. They did not succumb to disease or despair. Rather, they met their end in the most unexpected of ways. They were discovered by a race of beings who, it turned out, had been watching them from afar for generations. These beings, known as the Keepers, had been waiting for the day when the crew would willingly relinquish their power and pass the torch to a new generation. The Keepers had seen the crew's wisdom, their strength, and their unwavering dedication to the cause, and they knew that there was no one better suited to take on the responsibility of guardianship.